Ladies and gentlemen, it is time. It is getting so close to picking your final team going into round one. But tell you what, Amy's series is now done. The practice matches are done. The intra-club sessions are done. And we are seriously getting really close to getting our final team together. So I don't know about you, but value has shown up. And this team is definitely going to reflect that value. I'm going to go through now and talk about where my team currently sits, the progression of things, my train of thought going into round zero, what I'm looking for in round zero, and then how I can use that information to kind of make last minute tweaks. Now, I say last minute tweaks because the last thing you want to do is have people in your side that you haven't thought about all year. So, Chris, I'm talking to you, Mr. Give Me Crap for Elliot Yo, and now he's in your side. Yes, I hear you. Yes, I see you. Go and see Chris's team reveal as well if you haven't already. See it first so that way you can actually come and get some better thoughts on the second way around. Swizz, I'm sure, will be right behind us as well. But let's get into my team and I'll explain a couple of the slight changes that I'm thinking in a few different bits and pieces. But getting in. Now, Dacos is someone that I have thought about not starting in my side. He's so heavily owned. He's nearly 70% owned. And because he's heavily owned in that sense, Supercoach is also a human game. So I don't want to not be owning Dacos when someone's, giving points for effectiveness and he's just also good to watch. So I don't want to be watching a game knowing Dacos is playing and not have him on my side, and it'll just be really stressful. So I think I probably will start Dacos. Someone joked as well, I think he kicked it out in the fall and it went to McStay in the crowd and effective kick, +4. So yeah, for me, Nick Dacos, look, I know he's got the bye. The part I'm looking at least with this bye and the different teams that are having it, the good part is that you don't have to go into this season with a guaranteed loophole, right? So you've got only 2 rounds out of those first 6 are full rounds. Otherwise, it's best 18. And on those best 18, you're probably going to have at least one rookie or a premium or a mid-pricer that's missing, which means you're still going to get to loophole 4 out of those 6 rounds. It makes it a lot easier. So, and then the rationale behind that is then you can have an extra warm body on field to generate you more cash to start. And I'll take that flip side. Now, if you're someone that has a 102K rookie and they're not playing to begin with, I think it's worth possibly considering, unless you are starting extremely thin and you don't have a dead set premium and you need that loophole. I think you just might need to start fully loaded. So for me, Nick Dacos is in that side. The other one that I am looking at when we go let's go highest prices in here, Tom Stewart's another one for me. Now so another person I think will be, top 6, and he got knocked out super early last year, which means that there is actually a little bit of value there as well. Average, I think it was closer towards the 117, 118 mark, which was reflected in his back end of the season average as well. High averaging player, high ceiling player. And if anyone's seen some of my stuff before, I'm looking for people with high ceilings that can really make those top 18 count when we're looking at the start of the season. Because I don't want someone just going and picking me up a 90, 100 when the rookies are probably going to be doing pretty well anyway. And if that's the case, well, then what's the point? So for me, I'm looking for that kind of high damage impact player. Now, the thing that does concern me with Stewart is for the fact that it looks as though the trend so far in Amy was a lot of teams were starting to lower their eyes, not just bomb it in 20 meters out, 25 meters out. So, the intercepting players I don't feel were as dominant, and it was more the running and the your Holmes and your Martins and the people coming off halfback. They're the ones that are sort of trying to generate that run off turnover. So teams opting to maybe lower their eyes a little bit more, hit a target up 45, 50 meters out and have a longer shot for goal. Now, at least with Stewart, though, if they miss this goal, then he's probably first in line to get the kick out anyway, which is good for him. Whereas, say, a Sicily type, not only is he probably maybe being a little bit more accountable, but Amon took a lot more of those kick-ins, which means that if they're not bombing it long, and I think Sicily had maybe 1 intercept mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but Amon took more of kickouts, which means that I do see him probably being impacted by obviously the injuries at Hawks, plus also Amon taking kickouts. So it'll be interesting. But for me, Stewart's in that side at this current point in time. I have thought about a couple of different things here. Now, one of them being Sheasel. has come onto the scene a little bit more, just super consistent. I think he will be a good player. It just feels, I don't know. And he's so highly owned as well that I'm kind of thinking of backing against him. 40% of the competition are going, okay, yes, he did well last year, but then it's the recency bias. It's the hype bias. Everyone was big on him last year, and that's why he has the big profile and the big attention. Now he started off and he's done well for a couple of games. Now, is this like a Nick Dacos second year sort of player? Or, I think it's going to change a little bit. Is he going to get moved around? Is, McKercher going to really find his feet with Fisher there? Then McDonald goes back into the back line, and then maybe do they play him maybe midfield forward, or do they keep his role the same? Now, I think he's a good player, but I don't know if he's going to be consistent the whole way through. And if he is, he's already at a premium price anyway, so I can just pay $5.50 for him later, even more if I need to. It's because the Magic price will be kind of suppressing some of those scores and some of the price anyway. So some people will come down in price just based off the Magic number. So even if he's scoring well, he's still going to hover 500 to 600K, and I could just pay up for him if I'm happy at that point. But the one person I am sort of looking at the moment, lower owned, 9% owned, is Houston. The part that scares me about Houston is he has like 2 stinkers a year, but high ownership, high average, low ownership, plays a lot of games at Adelaide Oval and MCG to start the year where he averages really well. Port also have a fairly good start to this year. I mean, they play West Coast first up. Again, you talk about rebounding, people that are damaging and getting up the ground and getting towards that forward 50. I just think it's Houston's ball. They don't really trust other people in that back line as well. They're trying to mix up. So, I mean, you look at the wing and the half-back flank, they keep rotating all these different people in there, which means that when it's coming out of the defensive line, Houston's the number one guy. Have a look at Port's back line, and literally there's no one else you would rather give it to coming out of defense than probably Houston, which means that for me, I think there's good security there. I think he gets a lot of home games and a high ceiling as well. So I'm hoping he just doesn't have one of those stinkers early on. And knowing my luck, it'll be a buy round, it'll be best 18, and he'll come out with a 40, and I'll be like, I should have just started someone else, I should have just started a Walsh or somebody in that round, Tuke Miller, or someone that had a buy when he stinks it up. So, but look, for me, Houston's one. Now, I'm trying to kind of go a little bit more on the expensive mids. There has been something that I have thought about as well, where I had Nick Dacos in my midfield and then had Sheasel in defense. And I'll explain that when I show you who I was going to replace him with. But otherwise, the next one I have is Hayden Young. Now, been in my side for a lot of this year. I'm not overthinking. He looked good. He kicked some goals. He got forward of center. He's at the stoppage. But for me, it's about role. And a lot of defenders that are midfield or forwards that are midfield, they get the role. It's easier to average 100 around that point. He looked good enough, scored well enough. And for me, it's just role. Role-based. For someone at that price, I'll pick that based on role. I'm not overthinking it too much. The one I have thought about is Elliot Yeo. Still, how many people can I go in there with? He did look good. He played, decent amount of time on ground. He hasn't had any issues all preseason. His role is pure mid. Him and Kelly are pure mid, and Harley Reid was third off the rank in the game yesterday. So, it's hard to back against him when it's literally he's in the midfield. And I don't think they would do that to him if he wasn't ready, which means for me, Yo could average 100 in defense or even more. We've seen him average 108 before in the midfield. We've seen him average 100 easily in defense. So Yo is, I think, slightly undervalued. And the other one as well is Wanganeen Millera is another one that I am looking at. Sinclair is said he's possible for round 1, but then he said it doesn't help that we have a 5-day break between 1 and 2. So he pretty much ruled himself out. Didn't say it confidently as well that he was going to play. He pretty much said, well, I have some things to tick off, etc., etc. And the fact that, there's a short break pretty much, makes it hard for him. So I see that as he's not really playing round 1, and that's him in round 2. Either way, I think Wanganeen Millera, good talent, works hard, good use by foot, high disposal, kicking numbers, and works really hard to get back as well to sort of offload. Now, if you have a look at his average on the back end of last year, he's another one I think could average around that 100 mark. No buy as well. So I'm just kind of waiting to see a little bit more. Plus, with some of those issues that have come out lately, it's just going to be interested. So today with, probably the suspension to, Webster, Dougal Howard got injured on, was it a quad or a hammy? So he was injured. There's a couple things going on there where I just kind of want to see Sinclair in that mix and his role. And again, he's close to 500K, so you might as well just pay it. And even Yo, you can still wait and see on what's going on and then adjust. He's not going to go up that fast that you can't get him. The only benefit, though, is that if you're going to start Yo, at least if he gets injured, you just use one trade. That's the rationale. Start him. If he gets injured, move him on. Again, you have 4 out of 6 bye rounds, so if he gets injured, at least it's not a donut or a low score on your field for 4 out of those 6 rounds. You'll take another score. And I guarantee if Elliot Yo plays 6 rounds from 6 to start this season, he's probably averaging you between 95 and 100. And then people will start having that conversation like, oh, I should have brought him in. And that's the part that thinks in my head where you don't overthink it. I know it's Yo. I know he's injury prone, but full preseason, hasn't missed a beat. The role's there. So, hey, roll. Eye test, preseason, tick, 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 and then you start to overthink it. And then why am I overthinking him but not Fife? And then you kind of get into that train. Oh, but Fife's cheaper. It's like, yeah, but, Yo's got the pure role, not just a bit piece role. And we're not even that desperate in the forward line anymore. So that's the kind of conversations that you have to have with yourself. But for me, I'm looking at least 4 deep. I have considered 5 deep. But again, because of the bye rounds to start with, I only really need 2 rounds out of 6 again to kind of play rookie roulette and hope some stuff goes on. I've pretty much gone Gibcus and Reed as the main 2 to sort of start this season. Reed again, so you've got Ridley's now injured, which means his security's better. Still scored like 80. So good security now on field. I'm happy to sort of play rookie roulette with that one. The other one is I'm actually looking at Ethan Phillips now, only because it's a cheaper option, and you'll see why I kind of needed that cash. Caulfield I did look at, but I think was it Bucku Kamas is taking his spot way better, which might as well link these 2 together because he's going to go on my bench. And reason is I think he's actually doing really well up in that forward defensive line. Looked better. And, Dale wasn't playing and, Caleb Daniel wasn't playing. So I just think Caulfield just screams a little bit for me. Ethan Phillips, I think they need him. He looked good for someone who's only been at the club for, a couple of weeks. So I think he's really good. And the other one as well is back into defense is Schoenmaker. Now, someone that was highly rated slid in the draft picks a little bit. He got in trouble in his draft year. I think bought alcohol for some underage teammates or something or other. I think it was something like that, or bought alcohol in a camp or something. So got heavily reprimanded for that. Chewed out a bit. Was in the AFL longest kick. So he's got a good kick on him, a long kick. And he did well. So I think it looks like Webster's going to get suspended. Like if you watch the replay, it's old school where you kind of like run, jump, bump, and pretty much just took Simpkin by the head, knocked him down, leapt off the ground. So he'll be out for at least a month, right? Howard injured, so there's another one there. So I think it just helps secure that spot up for a little bit, for maybe 4 to 6 weeks, and see how he goes. And by that point, it could be his sort of role to kind of keep. And as a bench spot, I think over that sort of 4 to 6 week period, he might score well enough to be able to move him. And now this is the real aggressive part here, is that because I'm okay with this because of the buys. Now, if it wasn't, would I want 2 defensive rookies on field? Maybe not compared to forwards and mids, but once round 6 is done and round 7 hits and I've got DPP, I'll have McKercher, I'll have some other players as well, which we'll get into, that'll have defender status, so I can then trade, right? So Phillips might be my first one out. I'll bank my 100K, I'll trade him, and then throw someone else into defense on field, problem solved already, right? Or Schoenmaker or Reed, depending on, I'm hoping 1 or 2 good games out of there, make my 100, 150. With the extra trades this year, I don't think I have to be as picky for a slow burn, because I am going to start a lot of stepping stones, which means that once round 6 hits, whoever's getting forward DPP status or whoever is actually looking like a top 6 forward, it's literally go time. Round 6 to round 12, I'm going 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, 1 up. I'm upgrading, and I'm trying to literally get to full primo as fast as I can before the buys. Now, I say before the buys because normally you would wait until after the buys. I think now with the extra trades, I think you just have to kind of floor it, get to the buys fully primo, and then hope that you have some, use some extra trades to maybe upgrade some players that you thought were primo but not quite, and then you might look to luxury trade a couple of those to keep your scoring going, and then come out of the buy round still full primo, but in the top sort of 1,000 to 500, hopefully. That's kind of the goal I'm thinking. I think with the extra trades, if you sit on your hands, it's going to be hard. And I think if you go full guns and rookies, it's going to be hard because you won't have the flexibility of other people to trade out and have that cadence of upgrades, because you might have to trade 2 rookies down to get one up, or if your premium's not firing, it feels bad to sideways a premium. You shouldn't really be sidewaysing a premium, but you feel like you've missed out on something, so you feel like you have to go there. Whereas if you spread yourself with more of these mid prices as stepping stones, and if one looks like it's failing, you can then go, okay, well, I'm going to get a rookie here, upgrade this person next, or use that money to then be aggressive, or I miss this other mid-pricer, this one's not really firing, and then you're so much more flexible to actually upgrade as the season unfolds, whether it's a rookie, whether it's a premium, whether it's another sideways to another mid-pricer that looks like they're doing really well. I feel like you're much more flexible, and you kind of need flexibility with the extra trades as well this year. So I don't really want to have that fixed mindset on, like guns and rookies, and I'll get you on the back end of the year, because I think it'll be too far to chase. And everyone's team will be similar. You'll still get people in that everyone else has, except you'll just be ranked a lot lower than them. So that's pretty much it for me for that part of it. Now, so we're getting to this midfield. Now, a little bit different to what some people are thinking. I know, some people are heavily on, Goulden, LDU. People could not jump off him faster today. I don't think it's a true reflection. He started, I think, similar, I think maybe preseason last year. Don't judge everyone off preseason. Some are going half gear. Some are playing slightly less. They're just getting some minutes into the legs. Don't go full judgmental like an LDU and just jump off, or jump on the next hype player if mid-pricer does well. So like, I'm going this person because they've done really well. Yeah, just you put him in your side for a reason. However, LDU didn't look that good, so I can't blame a lot of the people. Chizo as well for you, Dr. Supercoach, mate. I heard he jumped off as soon as he could, but that's it for him. So, yeah, so highest price here. I think Bontempelli looked extremely good. I think he's going to be M1. I'll just pay up. Now, yes, you'll be able to get him for 620, 650, and he will drop cash. But again, they play West Coast round 3, so I want him or English against West Coast, and he's just a notorious scorer. He looks good. So you do need a captain option. At least you can kind of bank on him for a VC and a C, which is more than you could say for a lot of people this year. So if you can't do it, I think it's just an easy way to go. And especially with the buys, and if you do have a lock system, there will be 2 rounds in those 6. Like I said, you will have to bank on a captain. So yeah, that's pretty much him for me. So Bontempelli's one. Now the other one is, so I've looked at, like LDU, I've looked at like Goulden Green and a few others as well. But the injury part does kind of scare me a little bit. There is someone who I think is, again, high ceiling, high impact, hasn't missed many games. And I think a lot of games at home, a fairly soft run as well. And it's Jordan Dawson. Now, Dawson and Adelaide and Fremantle are ones I think they have some decent sort of games coming up. So, Gold Coast, Geelong, those midfields I think he should do kind of well against. But when you get into this sort of middle part here, North, West Coast, Hawks, Richmond, sort of in that middle sort of section. So I just think he's a really good player. I like watching him, high ceiling sort of player. And I just think that, again, 17% owned. I think he's just nice and reliable with a high ceiling, higher than Laird for a ceiling. Leaves me vulnerable if he scores low on those rounds, but I think that's the risk I'm going to have to take a little bit with some of these high ceiling players. And that's what I'm looking at. Now, the other one is Sarong. Now, I'm hoping, Sarong kind of follows through on some of the potential he showed last year. And Fremantle actually have a pretty soft bye as well to start this year. So outside of, playing Brisbane round 1, North and Adelaide. So I think he should do pretty well amongst those ones. Carlton Port, I think, again, kind of 50-50, the pretty strong midfields on that one. And then you've gone, so West Coast, Richmond, Sydney, maybe they'll get a bit stronger by then. Saints, Collingwood, you're talking about a lot of teams that have one or two kind of good mids where I think he should just be able to get in and under and get to work, which is sort of where Young comes in as well, because they do have a few, I think, good matchups for them. You're never going to have a extremely soft draw per se, but I think it's just looking for those pockets on people who have some of the easier teams or mids that maybe have some issues or not as complete in the first half of the season. Just knowing, I think it'll give them a bit of a percentage boost when they hit that sort of buy. So here's one. The other one is I'm actually looking at Parrish. Now, Parrish is someone who I feel like merit always averages better in the back end of the year. He's the polish. He's the one that they kind of target a little bit more. If Martin keeps on the way he's going, though, I can see some people actually targeting Martin instead. So it could be interesting what they actually plan to do with that one. But I think Parrish, again, so it's like Sarong. His role can't change. Now, I'm picking these ones because, A, they don't have the buy. So it could easily be a Green, except, again, Green has the buy. There's a few others as well that sort of had the buy. Zach Butters is someone I am looking at. It doesn't make me feel great, though. He's rolled his ankle twice in a couple of weeks. Ollie Wine's getting the full bulk of the midfield. But he is someone, it depends. Like, if it looks like he's training well for the next couple of weeks and it looks like he's all good, then it could go back to Sarong and Butters, which is pretty much my mix. But I think Parrish is kind of the next in line for me. And, so that's kind of what I'm looking at there. And then the next one is Steele. Now, Steele was the same one that I was looking at. Tackled 9 times, looked okay. Looked like he was going in half gear, but he was getting tackles. He looks pretty fit compared to last year. Good price point. Now, this is one I am a little concerned about. If Tuke Miller goes really well for a couple of weeks, it could become him. He could also become like a Sheasel or a player like that, or a Yo. It's really interesting. So it's gonna be one of those wait and see kind of moments, based off what round 0 does do, because there are a few missing pieces in here, depending on rookies and round 0 as to how that actually shapes up. But for me, that's pretty much what I'm looking at. I'm looking at possibly the 5 deep with Steele being that guy. Otherwise, again, sort of shifting elsewhere. But there's money to be made. I do want to leave some spots open in defense because I've already got sort of 4 deep, which means I do want room for a Sicily. Or, if Wangeline Miller or someone's really impressing, or Coleman comes out of nowhere and just keeps like going 105s. Sheasel, there's a few others. So I think Sheasel is someone I am definitely tempted in that spot instead of Steele. But then I'm like, well, who would average more, Steele or Sheasel? And, would you rather a mid or a defender? And that's the kind of easy issue, I think, to kind of try and navigate around. But Butters is the main dark horse, I think, that I do want in my side. Mainly because, again, they have a fairly good draw, I believe. Let's have a quick look. So, they play, West Coast round 1, Richmond. So 2 midfields I think he could kind of exploit on the outside. And then they kind of go through a few, Melbourne, Essendon, Fremantle, Collingwood, Saints, Adelaide, Geelong, and then Hawthorn and North round 10 and 11 as well. So they do play, I think, quite a few games where that speed on the outside could really suit Butters. So I am looking for hopefully the next couple of weeks on him to impress. And I would like to start him in my side. But what do I need? I need about 107K on top of Steele, which would mean that 107K, I'd pretty much be needing to go down to, say, a Wangeline Miller instead of a Houston, and then going from Steele up into a Butters. So Houston and Steele, or Butters and Wangeline Miller, or like a Yo. Just doesn't feel as well. But so he'll probably replace Parrish if that does actually eventuate. Or Sarong is the other one that I am kind of considering. But we'll see. We'll go Sanders, McKercher are the main rookies. Now, they all impressed well enough. My main concern is probably McKercher. And the reason is, looked really good round 1. This one just coming in, with Fisher, still did okay. But at his price, though, for getting more that sort of 50, 60 concerns me a little bit. So his role's kind of there. You'd like to see more of him. He's going to be heavily owned. I mean, what is he? 63%. So I think you just kind of have to start him, and then I might be able to shift if I need to. Or the other option is that you can go from him and then move to another rookie that you might have missed. So, I think you just might be one that you just kind of have to start. There's a few people I have passed on, though. So Sharp for me, I don't know if I trust him to stay best 22. That's probably the easiest way to say it. McRae Jr. Was off the bench, so I think he put a line through him. There's quite a few others now that I've sort of, Sins obviously, put a line through him. There's a lot of different options there where you've kind of just ruled them out. Now, the one I am kind of iffy on, so Windsor, I'm probably going to start, mainly because, 33% owned. Kicked a couple goals, and on the wing, he did look good. So he's got at least a nice sort of wing roll, and just hope that a lot of the ball goes through him. I think Hunter had a bit of a setback, and when you have that kind of dynamic winger that can work really hard and link up and kick goals, I think it actually makes the D's look better. So I think he probably has a spot. For me, Laurie is probably the one more at risk, just because, you have, so it was like Sparrow was already there, but there's like a couple of players sort of coming back in, and Clary. So Laurie's probably the one that could be at risk of, sort of losing his spot. So there's the more questionable for me. So that's the one I'm looking at. Now, I hate expensive rookies on bench, but I'm thinking I might start with and see how McKercher goes, but like Huswaite could be there. Sanders did really well as well. Had like 30 touches in a practice match. Like seriously, in Amy series, absolute jet. Came on and bit of a pit bull, getting his hands on it, getting some good clean hands out. I thought he was really impressive for a first showing out. Kind of makes me wish I took him in a keeper league instead of McKercher, to be honest. But, it's early days on that. But I'm really impressed with all of them. Huswaite, I'd rather not spend money on my bench, so I'm hoping that something else shows up. But I'm just not as confident in some of those other mid spots. Now, Huswaite, again, it's not all secure though, because, if he's tall, so I think he gives him a point of difference. Day could be back around 1 or 2, so like 1 or 2 weeks or something, I think. So it could be early in the season, round 2 or so. So that could impact him there a little bit. It'll be interesting because then you had Mackenzie played really well as well. Ward's kind of banging on the door, and then what's going to happen with that mix. So yeah, he's someone that could keep his spot. But the part I don't like about Hawks, especially in that midfield, is even last year they said, hey, we got like a squad of 30. We're just going to rotate them around and pick the best one to give them opportunity. And if you're not performing for just even a couple of weeks, they'll just go and, they'll just rotate someone else through. And that's the part that I hate, because it's, he might score well and he's got the role, but will he keep it? And Mitchell definitely likes to rotate through, thinking more of the long game rather than just what's happening right now. So, just ask, was it Josh Ward that? So, Huswaite is a little bit of a concern for me, but I think he is impressive. Clark, I think so. Jai Clark's probably one of the best rookies here. If we had a lot of other cheaper rookies, I'd be quite happy to start him on field. So, he's good cover anyway for those sort of buys. So that's the one. Oh, so no one's even told me how to say Sean's name. Sean Manor. There you go. I reckon I might have got that. Probably not. So look, he's the other one now. He's getting better as well. Only played a small amount of time on ground, but scored pretty well. Now, I think he's someone who probably will get some opportunities, but they did rate him, what he does, the pressure around it. It might not always be about touches as far as his place in the side anyway, but he's one that I am sort of considering and looking at in that spot. So I think you all need it. Now, I really do want, in my ruck line, I really want English, right? But this new ruck system, now English is great because he pushes forward and he exploits teams and he links up that way. And I do want him, especially when they play West Coast, because seriously, he's probably going 300 Supercoach. But, when you're looking at what it does and value-wise, it's about 230,000, which is me starting a $300,000 player instead of Steele, just to play English over, say, like a Grundy or a Cherry. Now, I know a few people have gone now Cherry, mainly because he doesn't have the bye. He still looks pretty good. He's probably going to go 95 to 100. But at a 400K, I think I'd want a little bit more than that as a guy that's going to average 95 to 100. Grundy, at least we get to see in round 0. And again, when you look at who they play, yes, he has a challenging game first up. So I do want to see how he kind of goes. They play Melbourne, so against Gawn, Collingwood, I reckon he could go right there because he's definitely got more muscle than those, than Cameron and Cox. So I think the old push and shove, I think, is going to help him a bit Essendon as well. I think Goldie's really classy, but, you know, he might be able to handle that a little bit more. Richmond, you know, maybe Nank might not be back at that point, so it's going to be interesting there. And then West Coast sort of through here and Hawks. West Coast, particularly round 4, I think he's in for a big price jump. Now, if he can get a price jump there, it's going to be really interesting, and then goes into the bye, which kind of sucks. But, you know, it'll be interesting for that price point because I think he is up for, like he did last year, a good score against West Coast, and then really elevate his scoring. And then I'm hoping maybe English comes down and we'll see where we're at that point. But I think the value is too hard to kind of ignore, and I'm putting him here just because he does have round 0, and I'm waiting for him to tell me not to. I don't really like it. I'd rather pay the extra 2, sort of 30 or whatever it is, but, you know, you can't have it all. And you can't start everyone, and I think that 230k is significant enough. And it's like 300 to Cherry. So, I mean, that again, it's like another premium. So, you know, that's the kind of rationale where you're sort of thinking of. Let's get rid of Baku, put him over here somewhere. Now, my forward line is pretty much all value town. Now, this is the only person that hasn't been in my side all preseason, and it's Mr. Fish. Now, cheers to you, Mr. Fish. Mr. Fisher. Now, the best part about this is he took most of the kickouts. Racked it up. I mean, you look at, you know, McDonald's, with the injuries that they have, McDonald, when he comes back, is probably going to have to play a little bit taller anyway. He's done it before. I think he was on Joe Danaher or something at one point the other year, playing tall. So I think there's no Aaron Hall. You know, it'll be Sheasel and Fisher, and he's someone that I think, you know, again, without the buys, he'll get defensive forward status as well. So another person you can sort of throw back there. He looks really good. Now, I hate to say that because Chris is all over him, but sometimes Chris is right. And, you know, for one of them, you know, he talks about, you know, Grundy. So I don't want Grundy, but, you know, the value you just kind of have to sort of take. And then Fish is the other one where I'm probably just going to lean into Chris's train of thought sometimes, because I know Chris can be very stubborn with his thoughts, and sometimes he can have an opinion of someone and be so locked into that opinion that he kind of can't change. But for the better part, though, is that when he gets like that and he nails some picks, he nails some picks. So for me, it's kind of, I try and get out of my own way sometimes and not be so fixed with my mindset that I'm like, okay, so again, break it down regardless of how I feel about Fisher and his hamstrings and all the rest of it. The role is there, the kickouts are there, the price point's there, racked it up today, the eye test was there. So for me, and the forward lines suck. So that's where he comes in instead of, say, like a Sheasel, because obviously the line that he's on, whereas that also, again, another person that could provide me a defensive forward status, I'm going to have 3 of them, which is crazy. So that way, again, Gibson, Reed, and Phillips, or whoever I need to, can get out of my side really quickly if I need to. And then the rest of these are kind of heavily owned. We'll go, so Fife is the other one. Looked good, passed the eye test. Again, with the extra trades, I'm just going to take that risk. And with the bye rounds, even if they get injured in the first 6 rounds, again, there's only 2 out of those 4. It's actually going to impact you. So that kind of helps me take the risk. Whereas normally if I was like, oh, I'm playing 22, and if one of them gets injured, then that's going to really suck. But Fife's 51% owned. And again, if he gets injured, I'll have other people to cover him for 4 out of those first 6 rounds. And if he makes it through the first 6 rounds, well, you're going to know if he's a good player or not anyway. So these are the ones I'm just going to put in my team, like some of these others. Now, if Elliot Yeo gets up to 30, 35% or something, then I might consider that as well. I think he's 15 nearly. I don't know. But anyway, so Jordan's the other one for me. Now, Jordan's in that team because, well, Adam's injured for, I think, 3 to 4 weeks. Parker broke his arm. He's out for like a month. He already had some good roles there where the coach came out pretty much talking up great preseason. He's playing sort of like wing. He's playing on ball. He's doing so much, and he provides flexibility for him, which he loves. And he said he'll get more, on the ball minutes than he was getting at Melbourne. So, and he's also not the sub candidate for me, because that kind of comes down to like a Rogers or so Roberts, or one of those players instead, which makes me feel a little bit better. and he played phenomenal. So he is now in the side. And again, another person I can use as a stepping stone. The other one as well is Harms. Now, Harms didn't get the sort of CBAs I was wanting. He got some, but he was always going to be that sort of forward flank up into the mid. He's that real connective piece for them, the real link player. So I think there's still, score assists, some good movement, some good hard nut sort of traits about it. And he still scored like 91. So he's another one I think, it's not all about the role. I think he's definitely best 22 in that Dogs unit. And he's another person for that price though, like for $250. Yeah, we've picked a lot worse in previous years. So I think the people who are only like, oh, I'm only going to pick 2 of these people, or I can only pick 2. So they're like, I'm going to go 2 premiums, 2 mid prices, and I can only pick 2. Then you might lock yourself out of picking all of them, which sounds crazy. But in this forward line, if there was ever a year to completely disregard the premiums because they have the bye in the forward line. So if I was to pick 2, it's probably Dusty and Flanders. Both have the bye. I'd rather just wait and see how they go and then upgrade to some of these players to them. And at least then by round 6, you might see, someone might get a DPP that you weren't expecting. And you're like, oh my gosh, like how do I have, like in previous years, Josh Kelly, Tom Liberatore, these forwards, you're like, whoa, like that's great. We got these great midfielders that are forwards. I'll be jumping all over that before round 7 even starts. Like that's what I'm looking at. And that's where these players can really be useful to, hey, I'm going to go 1 down, 1 up. And I'm going hard to upgrade, a Harms to a $500,000 player or whatever it may be. Maybe Darcy gets injured, so I'm prioritizing Jackson. And then just it leaves you super flexible with those trades to kind of make corrections and move as the data comes in. And you're going to get so much knowledge in that first 6 weeks. And to be flexible, I think, is really much the key. The other one as well is... so then you got, easy one. So you got Harley Reid after this point, and my mate Sexton's now 41%. I think I got on at 3 or 4%. Racked it up, looked extremely good, shared the kickouts. Kickouts, I think Powell had some, I think Sexton had a little bit, but he was more just halfback flank, should I say. So that's really bodes well for him. A 123k or 133k bargain. Literally bargain. Everyone that saw him play, it's now jumped on. He's pretty much one of the best forward players you can have. And then the other one is Wilsonic played extremely well as well. He's 51%, so easy rookie for that one as well. And then, as you already know, I've gone Baku Karmas at this point. So just because, again, I think he played better in that defensive spot. Another DPP player. So there you go. I'm going to have 4 of them. But I think it was much better for him. In that line. So I think he's the one that's kind of got the spot for me. I did look at Cadman. He did have some hit outs. He didn't really capitalize on the hit outs. I think he attended 17 ruck contests and won 4, kicked a goal, but they do play West Coast and North in the first 2 rounds. So like after they play Collingwood, obviously, so in the first 2 Supercoach rounds. So if he looks good against Collingwood, knowing that they play West Coast and North Melbourne, I might go Cadman. He's going to play each week. He might go 50 some weeks and bank. I'm hoping he finally actually has a good score. Looks a bit stronger, looks a bit bigger, leaping at the ball a bit more. So I think there's some real value there. That's what I'm kind of considering. And, but at least I get to have a look at, Jordan. I'll get to have a look at one more time. Sexton, I'll get to have a look at another time. Grundy and Gawn, I get to watch them in action. Naismith as well. I get to sort of watch and see how he goes. Windsor, he's probably the one I'm really going to watch as well. If he scores well, he's someone I'd like to leave out of my side if I could. And then I'm pretty happy with like the midfield mix there. And Dacos as well. So if Dacos doesn't perform very well with some of the possible tags, and I know they're not normal tags, but you might have, say, Rowbottom or a few others paying some attention to him. He's someone as well that I might kind of leave out. But that is my team. So let me know what you're thinking with your side. Let me know where you are currently sitting with your current getup. Is it looking similar to this? Are you going more guns and rookies? Or are you going thin? Who do you really rate this year that you just can't leave out? That's probably the biggest one. Like who in all of the players there, who do you just can't leave out of your side? You just keep coming back to them and they might not be that highly owned, but you just can't leave them out. And the person I keep coming back to, if there's one person I can include, it's Parrish. Now, I can leave him out on my side because as that expensive premium, you can just get them in later. If they start off well, you're like, okay, my first upgrade, I nominate Parrish. But he's the one that I kind of keep coming back into, possibly in that side. The other one I'm really tempted on, apart from Yo, is like Himmelberg. I know he didn't do well, but he did take most of the kickouts for GWS, so I'm kind of watching to see that one, with sort of Whitfield. But again, those buys just kind of hurt. So for me, it's, and Short. If Short goes really big round 0 and looks good, I might just be like, well, be damned. It's Melbourne and it's a Richmond buy. And that's kind of it, And the other one is, as well as I'm looking at Billings as well, is probably the other one, big one for Melbourne. So I might, if I could go Hustwaite down and Windsor up, there is very much the possible chance that I might do that as well. So yeah, I mean, it depends on how Windsor and that kind of looks and how it goes, but that is the option there where, kind of see what sort of eventuates in that, and let's just see how that looks. So that's pretty much the main part of it anyway. And Wilson up in here. And let's go with Bill Tongs. But the other part I have is that, it'll be interesting to sort of see 121. So then I'd be putting another rookie up in that spot. So probably Harley up in here. And then another rookie in that spot instead of Harley Reid. If this app would work for me, that'd be nice. And then trying to go for another option in that point. So that's pretty much where we're at. Let me know what you think. Let me know where you're standing, and let me know who you're watching coming into this round. Thursday night, footy is starting off. I'll be at the game on the Friday, Brisbane and Carlton. No Wiedering, no probably Walshy boys. So let me know what you're looking forward to, and I will talk to you soon. Alrighty, bye.